Welcome. Psalm 17, that's 1-7, is headed a prayer of David, and a prayer it is. David has people opposing him on every side, yet he appeals to God as his judge. He's confident that God will uphold the rightness of his cause. My name is Keith Simons. I'm a Bible teacher from England. I present these talks on how to understand the King James Bible using the book of Psalms. And today, as I say, we're looking at Psalm 17, 1-7. And as always, we'll be looking through it verse by verse and word by word. So the heading, as we've seen, is a prayer of David. And verse 1 reads, "Hear the right, O Lord, attend unto my cry. Give ear unto my prayer that goeth not out of feigned lips." Hear the right. Right in Hebrew is the same word as righteousness. Yes, God is a righteous judge. Everything he does is good and right, and David is appealing to God to hear him because David's cause is right and good. We're not, of course, saying that David was perfect. The Bible is very clear to us that David was not perfect, but he had people opposing him and accusing him, and David was innocent of what they accused him of. And in another way, David was righteous or in a right relationship with God too, because every thought of David's heart was directed to please God. That's true of the people who serve God in every generation. Their thoughts are directed to please God. And even though maybe they often do wrong things, yet they turn from those wrong things because they are desperate to do what pleases God. But the enemies of David were not like that. Every thought of their hearts was to do wickedly. They were full of wickedness. They had no desire to do what was right or to please God. They wanted to please themselves. They wanted to benefit themselves, and they didn't care what cruel or evil things they did to bring it about. So David can pray, "Hear the right, O Lord. Attend unto my cry." In other words, listen to what I'm praying. And because you listen, I'm confident that you will act to answer my prayer. Give ear unto my prayer, turn your ear, listen to what I'm praying. It goeth not out of feigned lips. Feigned means deceitful or lying. When David comes before God, he speaks the truth to God about the situation which he's in. He's not, as many people do, lying, as they lie before a judge to try and get the judge to change his opinion in their favour. No, David will speak the truth to God because he is confident that God, who knows and upholds the truth, will help him and support him. Verse 2, "Let my sentence come from thy presence." Sorry, that should read, let my sentence come forth from thy presence. My sentence. This is sentence used in the sense of a judge who announces his sentence, his decision in court. The Hebrew word for sentence here is the word that we normally translate as judgment. Let my judgment come forth from thy presence. God, I want you to be the judge of this matter. You know all things. You know that I'm right, I'm not guilty of the evil acts of which my enemies oppose me. Therefore, let my sentence come forth from thy presence. And then the second half of verse 2, let thine eyes behold the things that are equal. To behold is to see. He's asking that God looks at this situation and that God looks at the things that are equal. We talk about fairness in justice, but fairness is not quite like equality. I was at a party over Christmas and there were slices of a cake on the table. Some of those slices were massive and some of them were quite small. I chose a small one because I could see other cakes that I wanted. But David is not merely talking about equality here. He's not wanting God to do the same things for himself as for his enemies. What David means is that he wants God to do the right thing. The word equal is used here. It really means right. It means, the Hebrew word means like a straight, level path. That is right. That is flat. That is an equal path. And God's judgments are like a straight, level path. They are right. They're going in the right way. There's nothing to interrupt their progress. God, you know, you see what is right in this situation. And as you see it, you are the judge. So decide in my favour, because I have done what is right. It's not wrong for David to pray like that to God. It's not wrong for him to draw to God's attention that he is in the right and his enemies are in the wrong. These are good reasons to draw to God's attention as David pleads in prayer with God that God will powerfully act to help him. And David emphasises this even more in the third verse. Thou hast proved my heart, proved in the sense of tested it. You've tested my heart. Thou hast visited me in the night. What's happening here is that in the daytime, when people can see what we're doing, we're tempted to cover up things. We're tempted to cover up our evil acts so that people we want to impress don't see what we've done. But in the night, when all of that is stripped away, in the night, in the long night, when there is nothing to distract, we're very aware of our own sin, our own wrongdoing. And that is when David says God visited him to test whether he really was sincere. God heard what he was thinking in the night. God heard his thoughts as he tossed on his bed, disturbed by the situation. And God tested that. Thou hast tried me, and shalt find nothing. Tried again, as in tested. The Bible likes the word picture of the way precious metals are tested or tried in the fire, because if you've got a hot enough heat, you can use it to purify metals, to separate it out as it melts in that great heat. And that testing that we suffer when we're going through trials, it's like that great heat. And what we want is that God would test us, and we will come forth like pure gold. There will be no imperfections in us. And that's what David wanted. Thou hast tried me and shalt find nothing, nothing wrong, nothing against me, because I've done what is right and good. I am purposed that my mouth shall not transgress. Purposed, he's made a firm and definite decision that his mouth will not transgress. To transgress means to do wrong things, to wander off the right path. But David says, My decision is that with my speech, I'm not going to say anything that's wrong. On to verse 4. Concerning the works of men, by the word of thy lips, I have kept me from the paths of the destroyer. The destroyer. The one who was tempting David to go in an evil way. Yes, it would have been very easy for David to follow his own works, to do the things like what other people were doing. And when David was tempted that way, what was it that made him strong, so that he did not go into evil ways just as his accusers were? It was the word of thy lips. He remembered God's word, God's law, God's command, and it was that kept him from being tempted by the devil into going into the devil's paths, we would say today, the devil's ways, what the devil wanted David to do. Yes, the devil had his paths, which he wanted David to walk in, word picture for living that way. But God also has his paths, and they seemed much better to David. Verse 5, hold up my goings in thy paths. Goings, another word for steps. As I walk on my journey, as it were, through this life, I want to walk in your paths, God. I want to go in your ways. I want every step of mine to be along the way which you are directing me to live. And then the result of that will be that my footsteps slip not. I won't be someone in danger of falling into sin, in danger of falling away from God, in danger of falling into evil ways. My steps will be firm when I walk in your way. I won't slip. I'll be like a train running along a track, held firmly in the right way, because I'm going God's way. Verse 6, I have called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. Notice David's confidence in God as his judge. God will hear. God will act. God will rescue him. Is not God on his side? Does not God support those who do what is right? The psalm again. Incline or turn thine ear unto me. Just like someone who turns round to hear someone more clearly and hear my speech. And now David is going to be more specific as to what he needs. Verse 7, show thy marvellous loving kindness, O thou that savest by thy right hand them which put their trust in thee, from those that rise up against them. Those that rise up against them are David's accusers, David's enemies, those who are trying to cause trouble for David. And David is one of those that put their trust in thee. He is someone who puts his trust in God, so he is confident that God will act, because God is the one who savest by thy right hand, who will act to save or to rescue his people. And he doesn't just think God will do this in some vague or uncertain way. He sees God as acting, like a person stretches out his right hand to act and to do something. God is going to act in power on David's behalf because of God's marvellous loving kindness, that great kindness which God shows towards his people. And then a very precious prayer in verse 8. Keep me as the apple of the eye. Hide me under the shadow of thy wings. The apple of the eye, an Old English word for the pupil at the centre of the eye, the part of the eye through which the light enters. It's not the Hebrew form of the word. The Hebrew form really means the little man and the daughter of the eye. That's a literal translation. But what it means is, just as one keeps or looks after the eye, the centre of the eye, how precious it is that you look through it, that it forms the images of what you see, special, to be protected, to be looked after. God, I'm your servant. You love me. Protect me like that. In this trouble, hide me under the shadow of thy wings. Word picture is of a mother bird reaching out her wings over her chicks, the young birds, to keep them safe from any attack. He's asking God not just to protect him as a judge, acting in power to save him, but tenderly, gently, like a mother bird looks after her young birds, or like a person goes so far to protect the centre of his eye. Protect me, verse 9, from the wicked that oppress me, from my deadly enemies who compass me about. They compass me, they surround me. These are deadly enemies who want to kill me, and wicked who are oppressing against me. Such dangerous, such evil people. It's very much the opposite, that verse we've just read, to the tender word pictures of the relationship that David wants with God. Verse 8, keep me as the apple of the eye, hide me under the shadow of thy wings. Verse 9, the wicked that oppress me, my deadly enemies who compass me about. Verse 10, we learn a little about the nature of these evil enemies. They are enclosed in their own fat. With their mouth they speak proudly. So they are proud people. They boast about their own greatness. And they are greedy people. They are enclosed in their own fat. They are people who want to prosper themselves. In ancient times, the only people you saw who were overweight were very, very wealthy people. Ordinary people could hardly earn enough money to eat a basic diet. They were very thin. And so, powerful people, rich people, became very proud that they could eat so much that they would be overweight. And so the only overweight people you saw were very rich people. And so the two word pictures sort of combined in the imagination of the Hebrew Bible writers. This was a picture of someone proud and greedy and wealthy and taking advantage of other people because they're taking food which really should be going to poor people. Verse 11, they have now compassed us in our steps. As we go along, they've now surrounded us. The end of verse 11 and the beginning of verse 12. They have set their eyes, bowing down to the earth, like as a lion that is greedy of his prey. The word picture here is of a lion looking carefully at the victim that it intends to kill. It's greedy, it's hungry, it wants food, it's determined to act. And so its eyes are fixed, constantly watching that animal that it intends to kill until, when the time is right, it acts. David compares that to these wicked people who are opposing him because they are watching David so closely. They have their eyes fixed on him. They want to attack. They want to hurt him. They want to kill him. Verse 12 ends, and as it were a young lion lurking in secret places. To lurk just means to sit. This lion is sitting there in the hidden places, watching, waiting to attack. David prays again, verse 13, "Arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down." Arise, because when God rises up, like someone rising from sleep, God doesn't sleep, but God does act. Like someone rising from sleep, gets up and acts in power. Disappoint him. May his enemy's plans fail. Cast him down. Throw him to the ground. Defeat him. Deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. Verse 14. From men which are thy hand, O Lord. The wicked, which is thy sword. Men, which are thy hand. How is the wicked God's sword? How can men be God's hand? Okay, well, some people have looked at that and they've concluded that it should be translated differently. They say, deliver my soul from the wicked by thy sword, from men and with thy hand, O Lord. That was Calvin's preferred interpretation of that section. But the King James translators are not acting without reason when they describe the wicked as God's sword and men as God's hand. They're doing that partly because this word picture is continued, as we'll see at the end of verse 14, that the wicked, in a way, they're benefiting from God's actions. Is that clear? Look, when one wicked person acts against another wicked person to control the actions of that wicked person, that happens all the time, doesn't it? That you get enemies who are equally evil fighting against each other and limiting one another's power. And in that sense, the wicked person acts as God's sword or God's hand, because God is using that wicked person to control another wicked person, his enemy, to ensure that neither of them gets the total power that they dream of. And then in other ways, we can describe the wicked person as God's sword or God's hand. When God's people are doing wrong things and God chastises them, corrects them like a parent corrects like a parent corrects a child who's wandering the wrong way. Or to keep David humble. Then God could use wicked people and men of this world to do that. There are all sorts of ways in which God uses wicked people in this world. And, of course, they think they're benefiting for their own advantage. They think that God has allowed them to do these things so that they can please themselves and be prosperous and wealthy. We'll be seeing that at the end of verse 14. But whichever meaning there, let's go to the end of verse 14 and see that. I'll read the whole of verse 14 first. From men which are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world which have their portion in this life, and whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure, they are full of children, and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. So how does it look to the men of this world? To the wicked men, to the men who have their pleasure in this world and the things of this world. They have their portion in this life. The good things for them are in this life. They become rich and wealthy, perhaps, in this life. Their wealth ends at their death. But they seem to have everything, whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure, We've already seen from verse 10 that they're overweight, as that verse puts it, enclosed in their own fat. But what does the Bible call their wealth? It calls it thy hid treasure, God's hid treasure. They have wealth and riches and fatness, and their belly is full of fatness. Their belly means their stomach. But that treasure belongs to God, and God has permitted them to have it just for the moment, just for this life, just until the time of judgment. Oh, but they don't see the judgment, because they think when their lives are finished, well, they are full of children. They have big families. That mattered a lot to people in Bible days. They thought someone successful had a big family. These rich people are full of children, and what is more, they leave the rest of their substance to their babes. When they die, well, it's going to be their children after them who receive their wealth. They think, seeing they can't live forever, that their families after them are going to share that same wealth that they had. And so we've got this picture of the wealth of people in this world, the wealth of people who live for this world, of wicked people who live for this world, that they act as God's sword or as God's hand in punishing and in controlling other wicked people, and even in keeping God's people humble, and God even uses them to correct his people. They are people who have their portion, their wealth in this life. Their stomachs are full of food. Their storehouses are full of treasure. They themselves have houses full of children, and they arrange their affairs that their families will be wealthy after them. As far as they are concerned, they have everything that this world offers, and they care not about the judgment of God like David does. Because David declares in verse 15, "As for me, I will behold thy face," God's face, "in righteousness." Yes, God is the righteous God. And David cares not. He cares not for the wealth the rich people have. He doesn't want to set up his family as a great wealthy family. He wants only to see the face of God. That is his reward. I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. Thy likeness? To see your form, to see what you are like, O God. That is what satisfies me, not the wealth and the riches of this world. But what did David mean? When I awake? Did he only mean when he awakes from death in the resurrection? Then he will see God's face, he will see God's likeness? I think David meant something more than that. Because although the fullness of that is for the resurrection, I think that David expected and believed that God would show him something of that even now in this life, that God would act in answer to his prayer to rescue him from his enemies who were surrounding him, to uphold the rightness of David's cause, that God would act and that David would see and know God in a better and clearer way than ever before, that God's face would shine on David, that David would know the smile of God's pleasure, even as David had been faithful to God. Please write to me. My email address is 333kjv@gmail.com. My name again is Keith Simons. Please tell me where in the world you are or which state of the United States. 333kjv@gmail.com. And now to finish, let me read you the whole of Psalm 17, a prayer of David. Hear the right, O Lord, attend unto my cry. Give ear unto my prayer that goeth not out of feigned lips. Let my sentence come forth from thy presence. Let thine eyes behold the things that are equal. Thou hast proved mine heart. Thou hast visited me in the night. Thou hast tried me, and shalt find nothing. I am purposed that my mouth shall not transgress. Concerning the works of men, by the word of thy lips I have kept me from the paths of the destroyer. Hold up my goings in thy paths, that my footsteps slip not. I have called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. Incline thine ear unto me, and hear my speech. Shew thy marvellous loving kindness, O thou that savest by thy right hand them which put their trust in thee, from those that rise up against them. Keep me as the apple of the eye. Hide me under the shadow of thy wings, from the wicked that oppress me, from my deadly enemies who compass me about. They are enclosed in their own fat. With their mouth they speak proudly. They have now compassed us in our steps. They have set their eyes bowing down to the earth, like as a lion that is greedy of his prey, and as it were a young lion lurking in secret places. Arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword, from men which are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world, which have their portion in this life, and whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure. They are full of children, and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. As for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness. I shall be satisfied when I wake with thy likeness.